Hey everybody, welcome to the videos and lineup building for week 14 of the NFL season over on DraftKings. Go over cash game and GPP strategy. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is shaping up to be a pretty tough week. Week 14, man. It is getting rough out here. Lots of injury news, lots of COVID news to sift through, lots of questionable spots. It's been a bit of a doozy this week. I'm just trying to digest it all and try to think of what might be the most optimal way to go roster construction wise. So I'm looking forward to this video, trying to see what we can come up with. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. If you enjoy the free content on YouTube, I'm sure you like the extra content over on there. Spreadsheets, data sheets, optimizers, ownership projections, which are very important. Cheat sheets, all that fun stuff, and a Discord community. Link can be found down below, not just for the NFL, but the NBA, MLB, and NASCAR once those seasons start back up again. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified. Just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 100 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you're new signing over on PrizePicks, you can get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. It's free money. Want to use it to your advantage, and I think it's really fun playing over on PrizePicks in addition to what you do on DFS each and every single weekend, so I do highly recommend it. But I think it'll be it for the plugs for the most part, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, gotta do my usual disclaimer, I am not building these lineups for you guys to use in all of your contests. If you think I'm setting a lineup on Saturday morning and just setting it and forgetting it for cash games or whatever it may be for Sunday, well, that's just not the case. You gotta wait for news to drop. A lot of things can change by Sunday. I use the optimizer, base everything on ownership projections. We're just talking through a strategy I would use to build a cash game lineup, and we can apply that to the new news we get on Sunday or your own favorite plays and just build your own lineups. This is purely just to try to see what fits as we talk through the landscape of this slate, as we've kind of digested all the information that we've had over the week. So if we are kind of gearing towards a cash game lineup, as I always say, if you're new, we always start with the running back position because those are the most important guys in your lineups, because those are the guys who are going to touch the ball the most. And we want to make sure the guys we want, not just some random 4K flyer that's going to see 20-30% of the snaps. So wide receiver 3 or tight end, that might be okay. And it might not be the best thing in the world. We want guys that are definitely going to try to get targets, but not at the running back position. You don't want to play around with running backs. So we typically want to go with 3 running backs in cash games. And tournaments, you can kind of gear towards maybe another wide receiver in the flex spot, but it's really just kind of your personal preference there. But in cash games, I prefer running backs because you're just guaranteed to get more volume, assuming you're picking the right running backs. I mean, if you use a guy that's a backup that doesn't play much, yeah, maybe the wide receiver was the better choice, but I think you guys get the idea. So we're going to head towards the running back position. And like I was saying in the intro, this is a tough week. I'm going to be honest. Like last week, it felt kind of easy, to be honest. I was on the big cash game train. I think it was, no, I don't remember the exact lineup, but a lot of people use it. It was just a really easy lineup to land on. This week, I'm not sure that's going to be the case because there is really there's not any smash play. Like, there's good plays in this slate, but I wouldn't say there's any smash plays. Like last week, we had so many cheap running backs, and I mean, there are some cheap running backs this week, but they didn't really stand out as much as they did last weekend. So we're still up top here. A couple of cash game options. We have Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette. I think those are like the 3 expensive backs that I think are going to be cash game viable this weekend. If Tony Pollard's out, Zeke looks definitely more appealing, but it just doesn't ever feel good playing Zeke, to be honest. And for $100 more, I'd much rather play Fournette with his involvement in the passing game. Then we have a bunch of injured guys here. Eli Mitchell is out. DeAndre Swift's out, which the entire Lions offense is out. Godwin, I'm not sure how to say his last name, and Jefferson are going to fill in at the running back position for the Lions because Jamal Williams is out as well, I should probably mention. So that's a bit of a, it's definitely an interesting situation. Detroit, that might just be an avoid situation. They're on the road in Denver. It's probably going to be pretty ugly. I would gear towards them in tournaments only, maybe. As far as the mid-range goes, Antonio Gibson, Saquon Barkley, and Javonte Williams look like your best options here, all right around $6,000. Yes, Melvin Gordon is expected to play, but I still think we can play Javonte. I'm assuming he's going to get the majority of the touches, and we're facing Detroit, so I definitely think he's viable in cash games. I am projecting him to have some pretty decent ownership this weekend. Then after that, you're kind of cutting it, like being a fringe cash game play. Like I really can't recommend any of these guys. The Detroit group, I just don't think it's probably the best way to go if you are playing cash games this weekend. So for me, I think we can afford at least one of these expensive backs. I am probably going Taysom Hill in this lineup, and if that's the case, I don't really want to play Alvin Kamara with Taysom Hill because they could steal each other's touchdowns. Yes, he could throw the ball to Kamara, but I'm not sure I trust Taysom Hill to get Kamara like 6+ targets in this game. So I'm going to bypass Kamara in this lineup. And really, it's between Austin Eckler or Leonard Fournette for the spend-up spot. With no Keenan Allen, that's definitely a big boost for Austin Eckler, and he's been a touchdown-scoring machine this season. Facing the Giants, they've been terrible. They're big favorites at home. They have a pretty high implied team total. I'm going to rock with Austin Eckler here. Now, there's a good chance I'll play another Chargers player in this slate, like Mike Williams. But I don't mind doubling up there because, again, with no Keenan Allen, definitely it's a big boost. And those are the guys that are probably going to soak up the touches in this game. So we're going to plug in Eckler. Again, there is nothing wrong with Fournette. Now, if we could afford Fournette in this lineup with Austin Eckler, I'd feel good about that. I mean, Fournette's just been killing it in the target department. If you're looking at the past month or so now, 8, 8, 6, 9, 5 targets. The carries obviously haven't been insanely good, but there's a team that's always around the goal line, so touchdowns are always in the cards for Leonard Fournette. 13, 17, 10, 11 carries, but he's getting it close to 20 total touches with his involvement in the passing game, so definitely think Fournette's a good play versus Buffalo, even though their defense has been pretty solid versus the run this year, but the Buccaneers have a very high implied team total. I want exposure to that game too. I think in tournaments, the passing attack looks fantastic. In cash games, I'm not really thinking we have to go that route, but just pulling that game up really quick, because I do want to talk about tournaments just a little bit, because I know a lot of you do play tournaments, but this game looks fantastic. I mean, 54-point over-under, only 3-point spread. You have Josh Allen versus that Tampa Bay secondary, which is definitely beatable, and you got great options in Stephon Diggs. Let me sort that just by Buffalo. Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think Gabriel Davis is a play you'd want to play in this slate, maybe outside of just 150 max, but this is a showdown, sure. Then you have Dawson Knox as well, and I don't really want to mess with the running backs. But on Tampa's side, I mean, obviously Tom Brady, with his pass catching options that are always typically too cheap. They did price up Chris Godwin and Gronk a bit this week, but Buffalo, while they have been very stingy versus the pass this year, keep in mind their numbers going to be a bit skewed now that they played Mac Jones with his 3 passing attempts, but they lost Tre'Davious White, which is a big hit to their secondary. So if you want to go Tom Brady and stacks with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, or Rob Gronkowski this weekend, that's great in tournaments, but not a must in cash games. So anyway, heading back to more of our cash game build here. We're going to go with probably a mid-range running back. And like I said, Antonio Gibson, Saquon Barkley, Javonte Williams all look really good to me this week. And also with Eli Mitchell out, Michael Hasty and Jeff Wilson will step into larger roles, although it's going to be hard to trust. I only trust Shanahan with Eli Mitchell at this point. Yes, Jeff Wilson did get the majority of the touches the last time Eli Mitchell was out, but it just wasn't a great fantasy day. Jimmy Garoppolo missed him wide open in the end zone. But anyway, I still have bad memories of Jeff Wilson chalk week. But I'm going to plug in Antonio Gibson. Yes, J.D. McKissic is going to be back, but that does not concern me. Even since week 10, when McKissic was playing 24, 19, 29, he did get hurt late in that game versus Seattle, but he still had 7 targets in that game. So we should get 20-plus touches from Gibson. This game should be somewhat high scoring. I think it could be a bit of a shootout. I want exposure to it, but Gibson at this price point, still too cheap, so I think we're just going to plug him in. I am projecting him for some pretty high ownership. Obviously, if McKissic was out, that'd be great, but that is not looking like the case, as he did practice limited on Friday, so I'm going to assume he's in. But if he happened to be out, I mean, just absolutely lock in Antonio Gibson, but still a very solid play even with him in. At this point, we could either start another position or just plug in our third running back. I'll be honest, I'm not really keyed in on one guy in particular. It just kind of depends on how much money we have left at the end, so I'll leave the flex open for now, but we are going to reserve it for running back. So let's start with quarterback, and like I said multiple times this week, I like Taysom Hill in cash games. In tournaments, yeah, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, love it. Like that Prescott a lot in tournaments. I think maybe Patrick Mahomes is viable versus the Raiders. The Chiefs tend to play the Raiders pretty well offensively, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce especially. But in cash games, give me the rushing quarterback for only $5,600. He had over 100 rushing yards last week versus Dallas, 27.6 fantasy points. Yes, a good chunk of that came on that 70-yard touchdown very late in the game, and he's got a bit of a torn-up finger, but since he's fully good to go, he is facing the Jets. They are dead last versus the run this year, which, yeah, usually care about the pass when it comes to quarterbacks. Taysom Hill, I really only care what he does on the ground. Yes, a passing touchdown or 2 would be nice, and maybe 100, 200 yards. I would gladly take that. But if he can get a 50-plus on the ground and hopefully a rushing touchdown, I will take it. Plus, the Jets' defense is bad versus the pass, too, so you don't have anything to worry about. Alvin Kamara opened up the playbook a little bit more, so Taysom Hill, $5,600. We will roster him just because he's, I don't want to call it a free square, but he's definitely just too cheap. I heard on FanDuel, I don't play over there, but on FanDuel, he's about as expensive as Lamar Jackson, so you're getting a real nice price point here on DraftKings. And I am currently projecting him to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate, as kind of awful as that sounds. That's how you know how bad the slate is in Week 14 when Taysom Hill is the absolute chalk. So at this point, we could probably start knocking off some wide receivers, and Taysom Hill does open up our salary a little bit, so we don't have to go too bottom of the barrel here, but we'll probably stick with the mid-range, because if I plugged in a Tyreek Hill, we're left with $4,300 left, which, to be honest, does not feel that great. So we're probably going to attack the mid-range here, even though there's a lot of good plays. I already mentioned Hill, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb for using Dak Prescott, Chris Godwin I like a lot in tournaments, Terry McLaurin, like just a lot of good plays here, but we're going to have to dip down a little bit lower here, and I'm thinking this like 5 to 6K range is kind of loaded with some good cash game options this weekend. DJ Moore, as scary as it sounds with Cam Newton at quarterback, it's just Atlanta's defense has not been good this year versus the pass or versus the run, so I think Moore is fine. Hunter Renfrow might be our safest bet here at $6,100 versus KC's defense. They have been playing a lot better as of late, but he's just been a target machine. Besides Week 11 versus Cincy, 9, 4, 9, and 10 targets. Like, I would take that all day. And the cool thing about Hunter Renfrow is he catches most of his targets. Like, he's not really going down the field too much. He's just kind of getting those short passes, but those add up in a hurry on PPR scoring sites on PPR scoring sites like DraftKings. So I think Renfrow is an excellent cash game option, and I actually think he might be the best way to go to plug in for a wide receiver one. So we'll plug in Renfrow. And then Mike Williams, I like him a lot too, $6,000. We don't know if he's confirmed yet to play, but it sounds like he's trending towards playing. It's just kind of crazy. He's been testing negative all week, and we still don't even know if he's going to play. It's just, I mean, I realize it's the rules, but that just sounds kind of insane to me. But the coach did say it sounds like Mike Williams is going to play. And if that's the case, I know I already have a Charger in Austin Eckler, but they're facing the Giants. We have a high implied team total. Mike Williams is good. We know that. He can be a bit up or down, but with no Keenan Allen, we're vacating like 10 to 15 targets there. So the ball's got to go to somebody. And it's probably going to be Austin Eckler and Mike Williams. So I don't mind plugging both these guys in. And if Williams is confirmed playing tomorrow, I'd expect him to be one of the highest owned players on the slate at that price point. So now we could either knock off a defense, wide receiver 3, tight end, or flex, just to see what kind of money we have to work with. We could plug in a cheap defense. It should boost us up to around $5,000 per player, which again goes better. And I think we're going to punt at tight end as well. So I don't think we have to go bottom of the barrel, a wide receiver or flex here. My 3 favorite defenses on this slate, I never spend up. Like, yeah, the Chargers versus the Giants, Mike Glennon or Jake Fromm, whoever may be, look fantastic. But $4,300 for a defense, no thank you. Broncos versus a AAA squad in Detroit. I shouldn't say in Detroit. Detroit's got the AAA squad. They're playing in Denver. It's already tough to play in Denver, and now you're missing half your team. I mean, the Broncos' defense looks good, but again, just a little bit too expensive. So for me, I like the Seahawks a lot versus Houston. Very low implied team total against them. Pretty big favorites. I like the Panthers versus the Falcons. They're playing at home. And I like the Browns at home versus Baltimore. They gave Lamar Jackson all kinds of troubles last time they played him. I will say one of their top corners is questionable to play, so that could be a big hit to their defense if he happens to be out. That's a situation to monitor. But I'm going to plug in the Seahawks. I'm expecting them to be the highest owned defense, and what I typically do is just try to play the chalkiest defense in cash games, because if they happen to score a random defensive touchdown, it just feels like you're screwed without it. And if they suck, well, everyone's got them anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. And that's going to leave us just under $5,000, which I do feel pretty good about. Because again, I'm probably going to plug in a super cheap tight end. I will say my optimizer loves Travis KELCE this weekend. He historically does very well versus the Raiders. Just a few weeks ago versus Las Vegas, he actually had a pretty big game. 8 of 10 for his targets, over 100 yards. Didn't get to the end zone, but nearly 23 DraftKings points. Just kind of part of the course for Travis KELCE versus the Raiders, whatever it may be. George Kittle, if Deebo Samuel happens to miss again, the price did come up. He's not as good of a play as he was last week because of that, but I still think you can play him. Rob Gronkowski in tournaments is fine, but I'm going to have to go down low. And there's actually several that I think are playable. We have Gerald Everett versus Houston. Austin Hooper, with all the tight ends for Cleveland out, he's the only guy left there. In Baltimore has not been good versus the tight end position, and we know Baker Mayfield will utilize his tight end position a lot. So I think Austin Hooper definitely in play. As you can see right below him, David Njoku on the COVID list, and then Harrison Bryant's also out. And then the other one, Stevenson, he's been out forever now. So it's basically just Austin Hooper, a team that loves to use tight end. So definitely keep him in consideration. I might just go all the way down low here with James O'Shaughnessy at $2,900. We all played Foster Moreau last week, so he kind of got overlooked as the cheap tight end, but he has 11 targets the past 2 weeks with no Dan Arnold, which is pretty good. Like, he's not going to project that well. I have him for like 7-some points, but that is one of the better point per dollar options at the position. You could look at Jared Cook with no Keenan Allen, because that'll definitely open up some targets, 3,200 bucks versus the Giants, but I'm just going to go down low because I don't want 3 Chargers in cash. So I'll plug in James O'Shaughnessy, as ugly as that is, and we have $6,000 left per player, which feels pretty good. I'm comfortable with like all these guys around $6,000. We have Amari Cooper here at 5,900 bucks. DJ Moore. I think these are like our 2 best options here at this point. We could look at Elijah Moore, but kind of a tougher spot versus New Orleans. But he's been really, really good. I just don't really like playing Jets too much in cash games, but hard to argue against Elijah Moore right now. Brandon Ayuk, no Deebo Samuel, 5,800 bucks. Kind of busted last week, but I think he would be fine. Julio Jones, if he's activated, which it sounds like he's trending towards being activated, versus Jacksonville secondary, you could play him, but in cash games, I'd probably steer away from that. Jarvis Landry really not a cash game play for me. So honestly, I think it's between DJ Moore and Amari Cooper. But since I said I wanted a running back in the flex spot, and we'll probably be able to choose between the 2, I'm just going to see who fits after we plug in. It's probably going to be Javonte Williams because I know for a fact he's around $6,000. We could also look at Saquon Barkley versus the Chargers, but I just have a hard time trusting anybody in the Giants defense. Like, the volume should be okay. He's going to play the majority of the snaps, and the Chargers have been so bad versus the run this year. It's just, I feel way more comfortable with Javonte Williams, even with Melvin Gordon back. Like, I'm assuming they're going to give Javonte Williams the majority of the load here. I mean, he looked fantastic versus KC, and it would just be dumb not to give Javonte Williams a bunch of work here. And they're facing Detroit. I really don't think they're going to struggle too much playing at home. They're pretty big favorites. Everyone on Detroit's out, so I like Williams a lot. Like, versus KC, the guy was, I know no Melvin Gordon, obviously, it's going to help things, but 23 carries and 9 targets. That's over 30 total opportunities. Even if he gets like 70% of that, or even 65% of that versus Detroit, I mean, I think he's going to be fine. So we're going to plug him in. I am projecting him for some pretty decent ownership this weekend, even with Melvin Gordon playing. If Melvin Gordon happened to miss, Williams is your best play on the slate, but as of right now, we have no idea. So we are left with $6,100 left, which I think we actually just miss out on DJ Moore, which I'm kind of thankful for because I don't like. I think DJ Moore is a good play. He projects well. It's just, oh man, I hate trusting Cam Newton, but he did get 10 targets in that game versus Miami, 17.3 points. He was fine versus Washington, 16 fantasy points. It's tough though. If you wanted to play DJ Moore, you'd probably have to play him over Renfrow, and then you'd have to drop down to probably like an Amari Cooper. But I don't mind plugging Cooper in here. He's expected to not be limited this week, according to Coach McCarthy. And if that's the case, facing Washington, they've been a bottom 5 team versus wide receivers this season, and I would like some exposure to the Cowboys offense. Like, I do like them quite a bit, so I don't think that's a bad looking lineup really. You have Taysom Hill at quarterback, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams holding down your RB spots, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, and Amari Cooper at the wide receiver position, just kind of going really balanced there. James O'Shaughnessy is your punt at tight end, and the Seahawks defense facing Houston, so I really don't think that's a bad lineup. Obviously, you could switch a couple things around. If you wanted to go with Fournette over Austin Eckler, you could probably afford a more expensive wide receiver than Amari Cooper, whoever it may be, or maybe even a better tight end, but I'll let you guys use your imagination, as there are several ways to go. None of them really feel that great, but we're all dealing with the same kind of players on the site, so we'll have to all figure it out. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that, for all the extra content for the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NASCAR. And I do think you'll find it quite helpful if you do enjoy the free content over on YouTube. Got a lot more in depth over there. And don't forget, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. And as of right now, if you're new sign over there, you can get a free money bonus up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. I think that'll be it. I'll stop rambling. I'll have the core plays video posted later tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.